So hey anime fans, the series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Female Batman, so let's start the series. It's simply not my day. A confined Naruto wondered, how did this day get so bad? He first nearly failed the Chunin exam's first section because the kind proctor began playing mind tricks with them. They were then compelled to enter this terrible wilderness, and to make matters worse, the blonde was attacked twice. Rain's dickheads once, and a gigantic snake that intended to turn him into snake crap once. Naruto came upon the scene of his dark-haired teammate getting her ass kicked after breaking out and attempting to locate his teammates. It was a positive sight, and he even laughed. Don't make that face. How would you feel if the person who kicked your ass in school did the same to you? Are you happy? Bravo, Uzumaki. After witnessing Satsuki get her ass kicked, the blonde boy leaped in to prevent her from being devoured by a large snake, something he wouldn't wish on his greatest enemy, basically on her. However, to recap, the blonde boy could later vent about his teammate being a complete bitch. In summary, the blonde lad unleashed the power of the nine-tailed fox that was locked in his abdomen. Orochimaru, the king of snake douchebags, finally revealed his true identity and wrapped Naruto in his tongue. As ridiculous as that sounded, it was true. Returning to the main plot, Naruto battled to escape Orochimaru's slimy grips while he laughed at his fruitless attempts to do so. The snake Sannin lifted his hand and said, "Kukuku," as the tips of his fingers glowed purple. "It's a shame that I have to seal it off," he said, drawing his hand back in preparation to strike. "This is going to be painful." Naruto considered exerting more effort to escape. Underscore 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 underscore. The blonde Jinchuriki imagined a giant fox with 9 swishing tails snarling at his container. The fox pounded his paw against the fence, yelling, "Stupid monkey." The Kyuubi snarled, "I let you use some of my chakra, not even a smidgen of it, and you still lose?" "No. I refuse to lose." It took a lot of work, but Kyuubi managed to give his container enough chakra to attempt to counteract the seal that was going to be placed on top of his seal by forcing as much of his chakra as he could through the little opening in the seal. The tunnel began to tremble as the fox yelled, "I'll be damned if I lose to some pedophilic snake bastard." Underscore 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 underscore. What the devil? Orochimaru had to release the Jinchuriki or risk having his tongue burned off or contracting chakra poisoning, according to the 3 people around Naruto, who began to scream as his skin began to peel away and then leaped away. Though his voice sounded deeper and more dangerous, Naruto cried, "I'll be damned before I let you win, you snake bastard." The blonde got down on all fours and chased after the pale-skinned bastard. Orochimaru muttered, "This is interesting," as he leaped back to escape being fatally cut by a Kyuubi augmented claw strike. Now, with half-red skin, Naruto snarled and adopted the Snake Man style. Underscore 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 underscore. It was a beast, not the daube of their graduating class, and the blonde's teammates looked in horror and shock. Sakura collapsed to her knees, recalling the moment they saw Zabuza Momochi. However, this aura seemed even more malevolent. The second survivor of the Uchiha carnage stood beside the pinkette, her eyes wide. How could this fool have been so quick and strong? He was someone entirely different. A startled Satsuki exclaimed, What the hell is he? Her pink-haired teammate sat there with her hands over her mouth and tears running down her face. Sakura said, I don't know, but it sounded muffled. Is he a monster? As Naruto was flung into a tree and smashed it in two, Satsuki cried out, No, there's no way, it's Naruto, for God's sake. He rose up as if nothing had happened, but the blonde had a very savage expression on his face. Underscore 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 underscore. The snake Sannin avoided a cut from the Kyuubi-enhanced Naruto and launched snakes from his sleeve, which attempted to encircle their master's adversary. As much fun as this is, I must be going. A pale hand emerged through the smoke and attempted to grasp the child as he tried to move, but the back of his jacket got snagged and flung towards another tree as Naruto shouted, sending the snakes flying away and disappearing in puffs of smoke. Naruto felt something around his torso that held him in place after striking it with the Kyuubi, and he began yelling and attempting to get free. The acute and strong churka around the youngster caused the snake around his chest to change into snake confetti. Orochimaru cackled as he dodged another claw slash, saying, You're too much trouble, then you're worth boy, kukukuku. So I'm gonna end this, the snake man said, reaching into his mouth and drawing a bright blade. Die. Naruto would have charged at him, but someone tackled him. The child snarled and turned his crimson eyes on the person. Satsuki restrained him, even though the churka hurt. The girl said, Get a hold of yourself, idiot, and snarled in agony. This churka was terrible, and if the Uchiha girl had to guess, she had only a few more seconds until it overtook her. Snap out of it, she exclaimed. Naruto screamed, Get off me! Despite his body's inability to resist her grip. Satsuki flinched in agony as the churka crept up her arm, seemingly attempting to devour her as well. Stop it. This isn't you. The blonde began to struggle to move without injuring her, saying, Get off. I refuse to lose. Underscore 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 underscore. The fox began to produce the red churka bubble as Kyuubi snarled and punched the gate, saying, Fine, if she wants to get in my way, I'll make her move. The nine-tailed fox's visage broke into an evil smirk as it asked, how's a douse of poisonous demon churka sound? Underscore 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 underscore. As the churka on her arm grew more powerful and painful, Satsuki cried out, "H." The girl felt someone grasp her by the back of her collar and pull her away. The person who pulled her away from her teammate created a kind of barricade in front of them while the churka moved higher up her arm and burned itself into her skin, leaving behind the stink of fried skin and smoke. The Uchiha girl glanced up with tears in her eyes and said, "Such a shame that he had to burn such beautiful skin." Orochimaru was speaking to her, but his gaze was fixed on the barrier in front of him. The girl saw that the barrier was actually a dome that encircled them both. Something outside struck the dome, causing it to tremble. A dim green glow illuminated the dome, forcing Satsuki to concentrate on the other person inside. The girl whimpered, "Sakura." As the warmth of her teammate's healing churka somewhat lessened the evil churka's anguish. "What are you doing? This guy is going to kill us." With tears in her eyes, the pinkette responded, "It's okay," he agreed to help stop Naruto. Satsuki cried out, "Sakura. He's gonna kill him," as she struggled to get to her feet. It seemed that the red churka had also gotten onto her right thigh, where it was burning fiercely into her skin and piercing her muscles. Orochimaru put his hand where a crack was forming and said, "I have a feeling that boy will contribute to my plans," so he decided to spare his life this time. The serpent then sank into the earth dome and disappeared. Underscore 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 underscore. Unbeknownst to him, the blonde had amassed a following of onlookers as Naruto tried to cut through the barrier preventing him from receiving his reward by slicing the dome with everything he had. As he watched the untamed Naruto go to town on the Earth Dome, a startled Choji said, "Is that Naruto?" Ino shook her head in shock and muttered, "There's no way. I refuse to believe that's the idiot of our class." Shikamaru said, "Blonde hair, whiskers, orange jumpsuit." "Need I go on?" the indolent genius said. Underscore 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 with his two teammates standing on either side of him, Zaku questioned, "Isn't that the blonde idiot that stood up to the first proctor?" Dosu narrowed his eye and scrutinized the blonde lad, saying, "I think it is, but where did this power come from? He could probably go around with Kimimaro a few times and make him sweat." As she shuddered in terror, Kin grabbed her arms and murmured, "Whatever this power is, it's evil, almost like Orochimaru." "Wait, isn't that him?" Zaku asked, squinting his eyes. Orochimaru emerged from the dome and swung his sword at Naruto. The blonde raised his hand and used the back of his palm to stop the sword. "What the hell, the three exclaimed as they leaped in shock and turned to discover a red head had materialized behind them, seeing the battle below. The red-haired elite guard was a surprise to Kin, who exclaimed, "Taiyuya! What are you doing here? And where are the others?" Kin wondered. Returning her focus to the combat, Taiyuya sneered, "Hell if no. They can go die in a fucking hole for all I care. I came here when I felt the energy spike in the area," she muttered. Dosu inquired, "Where were you anyway?" "I was in the village," was Taiyuya's startling response to the three. The bandaged commander of Team Sound questioned, "Is it that strong? If it is, wouldn't that mean the Hokage and higher-ups will notice?" They all looked down to see what was causing the tree they were sitting in to tremble, and their eyes widened in surprise when Taiyuya remarked, "Odds are they already did. Underscore 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 as a churka hand grabbed the tree trunk behind him and began rooting it. Naruto yelled in rage. He yelled, "Die snake bastard!" The tree was uprooted and hurled at the pale-skinned Sannin with a final tug. "Cute," Orochimaru remarked, grinning, as he extended his sword's blade and cut through the tree. Behind him, there were sounds of people leaving two places. Underscore 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 a brown-haired girl exclaimed, "There's no way that's the dope," as she leaped out of the way, and her teammates rushed in the opposite direction. "Kihana-san, please refrain from shouting so loud," replied Shino. "We do not want others to know of our location." "Shut it you," Kihana replied, frowning irritably, "I got the right to bitch because I nearly got killed." A tiny voice from Hinata, who was already concerned about Naruto, cried, "Kekihana-ch-chan. Don't speak like that. We have to help Naruto-ke-kun." "Screw that." Kihana said, "Let's get out of here before we get dragged into that fight." When Team 8 turned around, they saw a girl with a bun and her teammate standing behind her. "You're very loud for someone who's trying to hide, you know." As her teammates followed her example, Kihana said, "Just who the hell are you?" Shino did, but the figure behind Tenten stopped Hinata in her tracks. "Hinata-sama," Niji murmured, his expression displaying contempt. "En Niji Nii-san," Hinata moaned, and Kihana growled in rage at that sound. No one gave her closest friend that look, and Akamaru growled next to his mistress. Whoever this guy was, he smelled of rage, and he was aiming at his mistress's buddy. The white-furred puppy didn't like it. Niji arched an eyebrow and sneered when the Inuzuka heiress, sporting her pointed teeth, stated, "Get lost before I beat you into the ground." "Please," he grumbled, "if we were to fight I would win." "Why?" "Because fate has decreed it so." "Why you?" Kihana would have attacked, but Shino tackled her to the ground, saying, "Oi! Have you lost your mind? Get off!" She glanced over Shino's shoulder and noticed a powerful gust of wind go past their prior location. Everything in its path was blown away or shredded by the wind. Underscore 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 Orochimaru scowled as he sensed several figures approaching their location. This was not what he had planned, and the blonde lad was destroying everything. The earth dome he had erected disappeared, revealing Sakura supporting Satsuki. The two leaped for a tree branch to clear the path, and the snake man grinned, realizing that the pink-haired one had been helpful after all. Naruto spun his head in all directions as the Sannin vanished in a rush of speed, saying, "No more holding back." He heard someone chatting off to the side and roared in their direction. No one was there, but the trees had been uprooted. The youngster would have gone to investigate, but the earth trembled and a massive snake appeared, attempting to engulf him. The blonde used two churka hands to hold the snake's jaws shut. He then drew his free hand back and punched the side of the reptile's face, sending it flying. That provided Orochimaru all the distraction he needed to launch off the ground. His purple glowing fingertips slammed into Naruto's stomach, causing the jumpsuit jacket to burn around his abdomen. Underscore 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 the seal began to break when Kyubi yelled, "No!" and forced additional churka into the narrow opening it provided. The seal was unable to defend against two distinct attacks. Underscore 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 everyone in the area instinctively closed their eyes when a dazzling flash of light appeared. With her arm covering her eyes from the intense brightness, Tayuya exclaimed, "What the hell is that?" The three people to her right imitated her. They clenched their eyes and closed their ears to drown out the terrible boom that reverberated throughout the area. "How should we know?" exclaimed Zaku. Underscore 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 the worst agony Naruto had ever experienced in his life was a scorching sensation that consumed his entire body. He had unintentionally jumped in front of Satsuki while she was practicing her fireball jutsu. He wanted to cover his ears after hearing a sound that was hurting them, but his body was in a state of blind fear and was unable to choose between shutting down and experiencing spasms. He was screaming bloody murder, so at least he knew what that sound was coming from. Almost as if the cosmos had shut down, the lights and sound abruptly disappeared. Underscore 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 underscore. Naruto heard someone talking, but it was unclear what they were saying. Did you determine what was wrong with him? Another voice answered, no, Master Bruce, and although it sounded older and wiser than the first, he was once more unable to grasp what was being said. The first person responded, we don't need another Superman, adding, a person doesn't just show up out of nowhere, Alfred. Naruto felt like someone was bothering him when they said, I know you don't like Mr. Kent, but you can't see all people as bad. I'm sorry Alfred, but that's just how life is, replied the other individual, you can't go through life trusting everybody who shows up at your doorstep. The boy crept forward, causing something on the bed he was on to tumble to the ground and spill its contents, and that was when Naruto's body finally came online. An elderly man in a suit murmured, oh, you're up, next to Naruto's bed. The youngster looked around, but he didn't recognize his surroundings, which sent him into a panic. A terrified Naruto exclaimed, Koko wa doko? Where am I, and Anata Hadarita Suka? Who are you people? Alfred remarked, it seems he doesn't speak English, Master Bruce. So it seems, Naruto said, turning his head to his right and collapsing from his bed at what he saw. The man was wearing a costume that would frighten anyone who saw it for the first time. Naruto yelled in terror, Anata wa Nanamanata Suka? What are you? The man was wearing a bat costume, but the expression in his eyes chilled the blonde child. The man asked Naruto in his native tongue, Anata no nami wa Nanadi Suka? What's your name, which caused Naruto to relax a little. Watashi no namiya Naruto Uzumaki, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto said as he attempted to stand up but fell back down. If the elderly guy hadn't grabbed him by the chest, he would have the man in the bat costume resumed his interrogation after he was back in the bed. Anata no Shushinchi wa Dakuradisu ka? Where did you come from? The man responded. Konohagakure was the boy's cheerful response. The two men exchanged a glance that Naruto missed. Tadashi hook ni watashi o mukuru koto ga dekamasu ka? Watashi wa modat kuru hitsuyo ga aru, can you point me in the right direction? I need to get back, he smiled at them. Alfred addressed the man named Bruce, saying, what do we do, Master Bruce? I've never heard of this. Konohagakure says. It's clear that he's not from this world, so we might need to hold him longer to gather more information, Bruce said, staring at the wall as he considered their next move. I'd advise against that, Master Bruce, replied Alfred. I'm sure he's already confused about his surroundings. If we continue to keep him here, he might act out against us. Might I remind you of the other extraterrestrial that guards Metropolis? Bruce turned around and left the room, saying, if he could have done such things, he would have done so the minute he saw me. Naruto turned to Alfred for clarification, asking, Kare wa doko ni iku no? Where's he going? Kare wa, anata ouru hoho o mitsukurutaru, he's gonna find a way to get you home, Alfred murmured, regretting his deception of the youngster. Anata tachua ramen o mate mesu ka? Do you guys have ramen? Naruto exclaimed, Hontoni. So wa subarashaitsu. Really? That's awesome, before calming down to pose a pointed inquiry. Underscore 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 in an ancient warehouse. A very happy voice exclaimed, "Puddn." A happy blonde wearing leather shorts in black and red and a short red top skipped into a large room with a chair facing the window that revealed the night sky. Behind the chair, a joyful voice exclaimed, "Yes, my dear." The woman with the white face paint turned to the door she had just entered and said, "I found something interesting outside." "Bring her in, boys," she said. A terrified Hinata yelled, "IKA seat. Let me go," as two thugs dragged her into the room. The young girl struggled in vain to escape their hold. After throwing the indigo-haired girl to the floor, the blonde lady stated, "She just fell out of the sky." She gave the thugs a look that said, "Get lost," and they both bowed their heads before leaving the room. Her wrists were bound behind her back, preventing her from accessing her chakra. The woman had presumably slapped Hinata on the face. "Onegaishimasu. Watashi wa koko ni dano yan inata no ka wakaranai." Please. I don't know how I got here. Hinata felt a stinging sensation on her cheek and glanced up with tears in her eyes. She frowned and muttered, "Oi, Damari, oi, shut up." Hinata whimpered in agony and chose to remain silent. The man in the chair said, now, Harley," got up, and walked around the desk behind the chair. "Let's not be so rude to our guest," he said as he entered the light. Hinata nearly shouted in terror when she saw his face, but instead she gasped at the man's eerie smile and white skin, which seemed eerily real. His hair was green, just like his eyes. The man, dressed in a purple suit with a flowing lapel, approached the girl, causing Hinata to recoil in terror. The white-skinned man knelt before her when her back struck the wall. The man reached out to her, took hold of her chin, and jerked Hinata's head back and forth while examining her face. The blonde girl, Harley, came beside the man in a flash. "Yes, Mr. J." Hinata was reminded of the day Ino and Sakura saw a handsome man in one of their publications by the way she gazed at the man in the purple outfit. "You'll be my translator, right?" the woman asked, nodding quickly. "You speak Japanese, right?" She gave a salute, which made the Joker laugh. "Sure thing, Puden." Hinata could only quiver in terror as he turned to face the girl and grinned broadly, saying, "That's my girl. We're going to have some fun, little one." Underscore 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 arg. "My fucking head," snarled Tayuya as she tumbled atop a damaged trash can. She lost consciousness after being smashed into something hard and saw a burst of bright light. "Where the hell am I?" she moaned, clutching her head and surveying her surroundings. It was quite late, and she could hear a disturbance in the distance. As she walked to the wall, the elite guard was about to climb it when she felt her foot slip and slammed her face against the wall. "I need a better view of my surroundings," the redhead stated, glancing at a building next to her. She yelled, "That fucking hurt," while clutching her nose and glaring at the wall with teary eyes. She could not possibly be struggling with her chakra control, as she needed to have excellent control in order to cast Genjutsu. She looked at her palm and said, "Now that I think about it, I can't even feel my chakra." She attempted to channel chakra into it but felt nothing. "What's going on?" she asked, gazing up again and seeing a ladder leading to the roof. "Fuck," she complained, still holding her nose, "guess we're gonna have to do this the old-fashioned way. Underscore 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 more food. Kihana screamed to the waitress, causing the woman to perspire. It was strange that Kihana could speak English, but actually, she had learned it from a member of her tribe. The man had previously lived in an English-speaking hamlet and had married one of her clan's women. The man lived next door, and Kihana would frequently go see him because he was an elderly man her mother had known since she was a child, so he was like family. Someone sat down across from her and said, "And how exactly are you gonna pay for all this, might I ask?" The girl's mouth sprang open, causing some of the hamburger to spill out of it. "Why, you're green," she exclaimed in astonishment and bewilderment, and the man merely laughed. "Yeah, I am," he said, grinning at the waitress. "Please, I'd like a vegan burger, and her meal is on me." The waitress nodded, not at all shocked that the man had changed in appearance. The girl with the dog feature asked, "Am I the only one that sees that you're green?" as she looked about and noticed that no one else was giving them a second look. The man took off his coat, revealing a purple and black costume, and said, "Name's Beast Boy, by the way." "No, they see it too, it's just that they don't care, because they're used to it." Kihana regarded the hand suspiciously, wondering what the stranger was up to. Beast Boy smiled at her and said, "Don't worry, I'm not up to anything. And I'm not trying to get fresh or anything, my girlfriend would kill me anyway," the man said, laughing. "Kihana, Kihana Inazuka," the girl replied, grasping his hand and giving him a quizzical look. Beast Boy remarked, "Kihana, huh, that's a weird name." Kihana growled and snarled, "Oh yeah. What kind of name is Beast Boy anyway?" "Touché," murmured the green-skinned man as the plate containing his vegan burger was placed in front of him. Kihana resumed eating, but she watched Beast Boy, who was contentedly munching on his burger. Underscore 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 Tayuya, who had just ascended to the top of the structure, said, "I really need to fix up my nose." She touched the damaged sense organ and shouted, "I think it's broken." Fuck. She had no idea how she was going to mend it. Something passed Tayuya's head at a speed she couldn't possibly fathom, causing her hair to wave in the breeze it left behind. She heard someone behind her say, "You're lucky that I missed you on purpose." She turned around and one of Orochimaru's top guards pulled out a kunai to protect herself, but she felt a chilly hand against her forehead. Although the weapon against her forehead caught her attention, the man in front of her was masked and wearing a red suit and yellow gloves. His mask included a crimson visor on the right side where his eyes should be. It was more frightening because Tayuya didn't know what it did than because it was pressed in a place where her brain was. Deadshot glanced at the girl under his mask and asked, "What are you doing up here, kid?" Tayuya's question in her native tongue, "Nani o iriru?" "What are you saying?" startled Deadshot so much that he lowered his weapon, something he had always taken great satisfaction in never doing. He tilted his head to the side in disbelief and said, "Wait, what?" Tayuya cocked her head to the left, asking, "Nani date?" "Say what?" because Deadshot had tilted his to the right. While Tayuya did not put her kunai away, Deadshot thought, "Okay, since talking won't get us anywhere, let's try something else." The redhead tightened her hold on the weapon's handle as he raised his hands. Tayuya jumped back in terror when the man began making hand signals instead of doing something that would have made the girl want to fight, as he had assumed. The redhead watched him continue his hand signals after nothing happened and the masked man had recovered from his shock. The signs he made weren't justices, but rather sign language, which she was familiar with. "What's your name?" The man signed, and Tayuya put away her kunai, exhausted, and replied, "Tayuya," she said, causing the man to nod and carry on with his inquiry. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. It was late and most of Jump City was asleep when a white and blue automobile was driving down the street. The driver of the car was a man who was mostly machine, which made him a cyborg, which was an offensive term for him. After returning from a trip to Gotham where his best friend wanted to meet up, Cyborg revealed that he had discovered a girl and her dog who weren't from this world, which didn't surprise either of them. He asked if he could perform a diagnostic to determine whether there was a problem with her and if he could assist in creating a solution that would allow her to return home. Beast Boy may have asked Raven without realizing it, but the woman wasn't overly happy when he brought a cat home once. Perhaps she wouldn't be so mean if it were a human now. "Classic Beast Boy," Cyborg exclaimed, laughing until something hit the front of his vehicle. "What the hell?" the cyborg asked, reflexively applying the brakes. The object that struck his car was flung forward and hit the road. Cyborg fled the now damaged vehicle and hurried to the front of his automobile, where the scene before him astounded him, LOL. A girl with pink hair was standing in front of his car. It wasn't because she was a human or that she had pink hair, rather, it was because his car's front wheels had crushed her right arm and leg. The girl must have struck her head the instant she collided with the automobile since blood was evidently streaming down her forehead. Crap. Cyborg swore as he knelt down to try to remove the girl from the road without hurting her any more. Underscore 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 underscore. Underscore 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 underscore. As Naruto struck the bed in front of him, he yelled, "Watashi wa ienai kiru koto ga dekanai to iu imadisu ka." What do you mean I can't go home? Bruce didn't even bat an eye at the loud outburst. Instead, he merely widened his scowl. The man said, "Watashi ga itakoto o saikaku ni imi suru," I mean exactly what I said, which just made the blonde even more irate. "Tia me. Bastard, yelled Naruto. The butler bowed his head as Alfred calmly said, Mr. Uzumaki, a young man like you should not use such language. Naruto furrowed his brows in confusion as he said, Watashi o Urashite, Watashi wa nata ga igo o rikai dekanai koto o wajatita, forgive me, I forgot you cannot understand English. Anata ga kono sekai ni sumo koto ni naranakaraba naranakute mo, regardless you have to get used to living in this world, stated Bruce. Anata ga doko karakatano ka o tokudiai suru koto wa fukano disu, kihantakini wa doko kara mo deet kimasendeshita, it's impossible to pinpoint where you came from, you basically just appeared out of nowhere. As he approached the medical chamber's entrance, Watashi wa anata ga dokutsu ni tadamura koto o urashimasuga, anata no keiga ga chiyushita toki ni anata ga anata no jiken to tomoni o kanabiki koto o shinakariba naranechu. I will allow you to stay in the cave, but when your injuries have healed, but you'll have to do what you think you should do with your time. At that point, said Bruce Bass, Alfred lowered his head once more and said, Kare o urashita kudasai, watashi wa anata no fuku o kuriai ni shite shuri shimasu. Please forgive him. I'll clean your clothes and repair them. Sono boten o oshita dake no mono ga hitsuyona bai. If you need anything, just press that button there, before leaving. The old man knew that Bruce made it a point to never display his emotions, and Naruto could see right through that. Kare wa o kot konran shite sor wa yana hido diru koto o sito ka suru monodwanai, he's angry and confused, but that doesn't justify being an asshole, complained Naruto, but Alfred heard him. That statement caused him to stop and turn around with a raised eyebrow. He had Naruto glance at him as he spoke, Anata ga watashi ni tazunaru ki ni naranenara, do yat sor o shita mesuka. If you don't mind me asking, how do you know that? The youngster responded, Watashi wa kare no mi de sor o miru koto ga dekada, I could see it in his eyes, before he turned over and attempted to fall asleep. Bruce, wearing his mask, sat at the bat computer and stated, tomorrow, give him his clothes and send him on his way. Alfred paused behind Bruce's seat and stated, Sir, I don't think that was the right way to have handled that situation. The night watchman pressed a few more keys, bringing up police scanners and reports, and said, I'm not trying to make friends, Alfred, he's an anomaly, something we cannot fully understand. When Alfred was being very serious, he used the tone, Master Bruce, to say, I don't think you should let this young man go out into Gotham with little to no knowledge of both his surroundings and the language. The youngster reminded the man of who he was before his parents were dead, which was the main reason he wanted him gone. I'll give him some money in a book to learn English, he'll be fine. No, sir. Alfred approached and pressed a button to shut down the computer, saying, I can see that he has potential. Bruce responded, and what make you say that, while keeping his hands folded in front of his face and observing Alfred on the black display. Bruce scowled more deeply as he said, because he reminds me of another young boy who used to run these halls, in fact he reminds me of each of them. Alfred was clearly referring to him and the earlier Robins who wandered the hallways. So what? It's not like you approved of me hiring apprentices. It's true that the butler had consistently expressed disapproval of Bruce's practice of enlisting a lot of young boys in the superhero industry. I know what I have said in the past and I stand by it by some degree, but I have seen what you have done for each person who filled the role of Robin. All of them have become enforcers of good and have become stronger with your help. Alfred walked over to the area where Naruto was kept. All I'm saying is I'd much rather see Naruto as an enforcer of good than one of evil, Bruce remained silent and continued to gaze at the room containing Naruto. The man in the chair couldn't contradict it, so he refrained from speaking out. Not only that, but he was also able to read you just by looking you in the eye, caught Bruce's attention. Also, I see the emptiness of loneliness in his eyes when I look into his eyes. I know you see it too. He turned in his chair to face Alfred, who was watching the medical room, and questioned, "Why are you hell-bent on me taking him in?" The elderly man approached the elevator and said, "Think on that before you toss him out." Him left the caped crusader to his thoughts, saying, "As I said, I'd rather he end up as a hero than a villain. This world has more than enough supervillains and few are stepping up to the hero plate." Underscore 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 underscore. Get up. Naruto awoke a little and opened his eyes to see a man with black hair glaring at him in a familiar manner. As Naruto sat up, he inquired bewilderedly, "Bato Hito?" "Bat, person. Anata no fuku wa dokadisu ka?" "Where's your outfit?" The man approached the exit and said, "Sor wa burasudashi, Wadashitakiha kunran o yukite, it's Bruce and get up, we got training to do." Naruto responded to that by blinking like an owl and said, "Nani, what?" "Kokode wa torihiki ga arimasu, anata ga wadashinajikan no kachi ga aru koto o shomiai surutu, watashi wa anata ga kakugo suru chikara ni neru yo ni kunran shimasu. Anata ga nani mo shita ni koto o watashi ni ashita kudasai, sanatoki, watashi wa anata o mekakushi shite kisatsu ni o make shimasu." "Here's the deal. Prove that you're worth my time and I'll train you to become a force to be reckoned with. Show me that you're nothing but a waste of said time, then I'll blindfold you and leave you at the police department, then you're their problem." The man walked out the room and left a stunned Naruto, followed by getting dressed and adhere to him. What on earth is happening? The youngster reflected. Underscore 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 2.5 years later underscore 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 underscore. As the sun beamed on his face, Naruto covered his eyes with his hands and exclaimed, "Ga," in fluent English, "turn off the sun." Alfred tied the drapes to prevent them from closing again and remarked, "Master Naruto, it's time to get up." A 14-year-old Naruto moaned as he sat up, "How many times have I told you to stop calling me that?" He had outgrown his small frame and was now the proper size for his age. He had also developed some impressive muscles, though they weren't as large as Bruce's but still appropriate for his age. All of that was made possible by Bruce's workout schedule and the nutritious diet Alfred made him follow, which reduced his consumption of ramen by more than half, to once a day and twice a month at the end. Alfred replied, counting now. About 198 as he moved to the entrance. "I don't know which is more insane, the fact that you remember how many times I said the same thing, or the fact that I keep saying it hoping for a difference?" Naruto raised his arms in the air. "Speaking of insane, where's Bruce?" Alfred opened the door and replied, "Master Bruce had to leave early to deal with something over at Wayne Enterprises." Every time Naruto was spotted by ladies Bruce had slept with the previous evening, the man had to pay them to keep quiet. Fortunately, the house was so large that it was uncommon to run into these women at all. "Am I gonna have an awkward conversation this morning with one of his hookups?" "And your breakfast is at the table," Alfred remarked as he left the room. "Not to my knowledge." Underscore 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 underscore. Our blonde hero remarked, "Morning, Tim," as he entered the Bat Cave and sipped his coffee. The man with the shaven head looked over Tim Drake's shoulder as he continued typing on the Bat computer, which was occupied with some sort of decoding program. Tim turned back to the computer in front of him and replied, "Morning, sleepy head. Your back still sore from your beat down by Bruce?" he asked. The current Robin laughed when she said, "Nah, you should know that my healing factor is next to awesome, maybe leaning more towards being awesome, since it's me after all." Naruto approached the back of the chair and observed all the numbers being written and decoded, asking, "What are you busy with?" "A jewelry store, a relatively new one, was hit the other night and one of the guards didn't even remember what happened that night. From what I heard, he went in, sat down, and then there was just a blank part in his memories," stated Tim, "so I'm hacking into the security cameras and every kind of security system the place had," putting his empty cup on the desk. The blonde boy said, "So what do you think?" "Mad Hatter. It's almost like no one was there, like a ghost robbed the place," Tim said, unlocking a window that showed a camera. "The crime was too perfect, no fingerprints, and no proof of forced entrance." Now that the blonde was paying attention, Tim shook his head and pushed a few more buttons to reveal other cameras. "Catwoman." As if in a dream, Naruto noticed the security guard moving down the corridor and said, "Unless the two teamed up." He said that he couldn't recall ever accessing the safe, which only he and the owner could accomplish because it had a thumb and eye scanner. The blonde sitting on the desk said, "Wait, rewind the video." Tim followed instructions and rewound the video to 5 minutes before the man stated, "Okay, now press play and pause it when I tell you to." Naruto instructed the Robin to stop when he reached 2 minutes and 45 seconds into the film. The blonde pointed to the corner of the camera and said, "There." Tim followed instructions and saw what Naruto saw. When the camera zoomed in, they were met by a black blur moving across the hallway, which they could only see by looking at the reflection in the window. He asked, "Can you enhance it?" which caused Tim to nod his head and start typing on the computer. After a few attempts at enhancing the footage, they were rewarded with the image of a black-clad figure sprinting across the screen. Tim squinted at the screen and asked, "Is that Catwoman?" The cat burglar appeared to be there, but there was something strange about it. Naruto peered closer to the television and said, "Is that Ino?" He stepped back in horror. "No, Catwoman is taller than that, and if you look closely, you can see a trace of blonde hair poking out of the." As Alfred stepped out of the cave's lift, Tim spun around in his chair and asked, "Who's Ino? Is she someone from your world?" Naruto responded, "Oh yeah, as he recovered from his surprise that another member of the shinobi nations was present in the world. "And I have an idea about how she was able to pull this off," the blond boy scowled. Alfred picked up the empty mug and placed it on a tray that included another mug, which he handed to Tim. "Well, it appears that she has allied herself with Miss Kyle," he continued. "And if I were to guess, she has some kind of mind-controlling ability?" The blonde pointed to the screen that displayed a dazed guard and a running Ino. "When Yamanakas use this, just to their bodies are left like an empty vessel," Naruto said, scratching his chin in contemplation. "But, from what I heard, the clan that Ino comes from may be prominent at Mind Justice, but there's a downside to it." A frightened Tim Drake said, "Come again, did you just say that she should be soulless at the moment?" "Basically," was Naruto's response as he chuckled, "you see, Yamanakas have the ability to take over other people's bodies by forcing their spirits into their target's body." The man in the seat shivered and said, "Creepy." "Which explain how Miss Yamanaka was able to get into the safe without breaking into it," Alfred replied. The blonde said, "I have to go somewhere," and she made her way to the garage where all the cars were parked. Underscore 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 underscore. As Naruto approached a tower shaped like a giant T, he looked up at it through the visor of his helmet and frowned. The sound of a blowtorch striking steel reached his ears. As he pushed the bike to the garage, the blonde was rewarded with the sight of two legs emerging from beneath a car. "Oi," the blonde murmured, tapping a boot-covered foot with one of his own, causing a clanging sound. The blowtorch's sound subsided until it was no longer audible, and the individual emerged from beneath the vehicle. His attention was initially drawn to the person's pink hair and goggles covering her eyes. He then noted that she was wearing a red sleeveless shirt with some oil spots on it, a utility belt around her waist, and loose-fitting denim jeans. The blonde said, "Morning Sakura," and the pinkette smiled back, taking off her goggles. Her mismatched eyes, which were both green in their former world, had a mischievous expression. "You're very busy at this god-forsaken hour," the blonde said. She glanced at her wristwatch and asked, "Why are you awake at this god-forsaken hour anyway, even though it's bloody 1 o'clock in the afternoon?" The door was flung open by a furious brown-haired girl, and both of them turned to face it. "If we're talking about people sleeping in, may I direct your attention to the bitch upstairs?" To his mistress's ire, a larger Akamaru barked his agreement as Kahana yelled, "Who you calling a bitch, dope?" The Inuzuka heiress donned a black leather sports bra that demonstrated how much she had grown over the years, along with leather trousers that cinched her hips and combat boots to complete the ensemble. "I call M like I see M," was Naruto's response when he had to avoid a bull rush from the girl with the brown hair. She growled at the blonde lad, who brushed off his leather jacket as though she had left dirt on him, and Kahana fell on her hands and feet, her sharp claws cutting into the ground and leaving scratches in her path. The Inuzuka heiress lunged once more, attempting to tackle Naruto and ultimately prove her superiority, but she was thwarted when she noticed the blonde duck low. With her momentum, the dog-featured girl would have crashed into the wall headfirst, but she was grabbed by the waist. By putting one hand on the ground and gently laying Kahana on it, Naruto used the same momentum as Kahana to flip them both over. This meant that when he landed, Naruto had to bear the brunt of the stress on his hands and knees. Kihana opened her eyes and flushed red. Not only was Naruto standing on top of her, but his face was also encroaching on her personal space. Her rage was heightened when she saw the boy's enraged sneer. "That's what? 20-1. Naruto grinned more broadly at Kihana's irate expression. She yelled, "Get off me!" As she was ready to lift her knee to touch the boy where it hurt, but Naruto leaped away just in time. "As usual, Kihana-chan, it's nice to see you, but I need to talk to Sakura about a few things." Kihana complained about annoying blondes before approaching Akamaru. The pair rode into Jump City after mounting the white-furred dog. Underscore 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 underscore. A silence had descended upon Sakura and Naruto as they sat in the kitchen in the tea tower. It wasn't awkward or pleasant, but rather somewhere in the between. The pinkette listened to the boy and hummed back, "Sakura. I want you to be honest with me." She inquired, "About what exactly?" The sincere bewilderment in Sakura's green eye told Naruto everything he needed to know when he asked, "Have you been in contact with Ino?" However, he remained silent about the other feelings that were present. As Naruto sipped his cola, she nearly yelled, "Ino's here. Where is she?" With his tone and the look he gave her, he implied that she was already aware of Ino's appearance in Gotham before he brought it up to her. "I was hoping you could shed some light on that regard actually," he said. "What are you implying?" Sakura slapped her hands on the table, her mechanical arm breaking the tabletop. "How could I know? This is the first time I even heard about Ino's presence here." The blonde said, "Nothing, yet," and rose from the table, adding, "Just know, I'm always watching." Sakura yelled, "Did you hack our camera system again?" as Naruto fled. Sakura yelled, "Pervert," and struck the table with her fists once again, shattering it in two. Underscore 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 underscore. Bruce scowled at Naruto's outfit and remarked, "I still don't like that insignia, or the color." Like the rest of the Bat family, the youngster wore a top that was bulletproof and molded to prevent it from hanging freely, somewhat different, more casual, slacks, and a utility belt around his waist. He wore combat boots for his feet. The spiral fox on the chest was the insignia Bruce was referring to. The fox's orange hue was another issue Bruce had with it. Naruto grabbed his cloak and half-face mask and muttered, "And I keep telling you, it doesn't bother me." The blonde looked truly quite scary, for a teenager, with the hood on. Oracle or Barbara Gordon remarked, "I'm more concerned if he should be going out on his own." To the blonde's discomfort, the girl moved her wheelchair over to Naruto and straightened his hood, asking, "Shouldn't Tim at least go with him?" The present Robin stroked her shoulder and remarked, "Besides, he knows who this person is, and if push comes to shove, Bruce and I are on standby." Tim sighed, adding that he was now a big kid and that he had told us about his past experiences, which appeared riskier. The orange-haired girl frowned at him in concern, but his beguiling smile calmed her a little. "Yeah, Barb," Naruto said, grabbing her hands. "I'll be fine, stop being such a worrywart." "All right," Barbara murmured in despair, "but please call us the moment things go wrong, we don't need another Bruce." The former Batgirl began to perspire in terror as Bruce's stern Batman voice asked, "And what's that supposed to mean?" Naruto said, "And that's my cue to leave," as he approached his bike. Underscore 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 Naruto listened to Oracle through his earpiece as he turned a corner in his fully equipped power cruiser, swerving to avoid traffic. "From my assumptions, Ino will hit the next jewelry store a couple blocks over," Naruto said. "Knowing that girl, she's probably making it obvious, either that or she's just very bad at this," muttered Naruto as he dodged slow-moving vehicles. "If my training has taught me anything, it's that anybody can become great with a little help," when Tim said, "and a good ass kicking," Barbara punched him in the shoulder, saying, "Well, he gave as good as he got." Naruto laughed when Barbara reprimanded the boy's friend, saying, "Shut up, Tim." Batman interrupted their conversation with a firm voice, saying, "All of you, stop fooling around. And Naruto, focus on the task at hand. If you so much as hesitate, the enemy will take full advantage of that moment," Batman said. The whispered phrase, "All right, Mr. Grouchy," caused Batman to clear his throat. "Come again," was the response that nearly caused the child to lose sight of where he was meant to be. Naruto pressed his earpiece to rapidly switch off his communicator, saying, "I'm here, gotta go." Underscore 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 underscore. Where would I go if I was a former ninja who was now a criminal jewel thief? As he gazed at the jewelry store, searching for anything unusual, the child thought, "Is that Kahana, I wonder?" When Naruto saw the crazy girl attempting to pry open a window and failing miserably, he blinked in surprise. "Great," the child thought, "complications," and with that he disappeared into the shade cast by the building and moon behind him. Underscore 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 Kahana grunted, "Why won't this stupid thing open?" Akamaru was sweating from his mistress's behavior and wished the girl would think for once. Why couldn't she be like Naruto? Speaking of him, he had at least grown shrewd while he was here. Kahana would have cried in amazement, "Need some help," but she felt someone cover her mouth. She wanted to yell at the person who entered her line of sight, but she hesitated due to their scent. She spoke the word "motto" behind her palm. The eyes that she had remembered as blue were now fixed on her. The crimson of the darkness, with the slit in the center, made her shudder and gave off an air of strength. Naruto asked, "What are you doing here?" in a deep, menacing voice that was completely different from his usual one. Of and its fox, Kihana was enthralled with what she saw and would have moved the hand. When did Naruto become into such an alpha? Kihana was startled out of her reverie as the blonde boy removed his hand from her mouth and put it close to her head. I asked you a question, he said. Kihana stammered out, what's it to you? She cleared her throat and tried again, asking in a more frantic tone that wasn't as frightening as she had assumed given her red flush. The blonde stepped back and crossed his arms, saying, I'd say it's everything, since this is my turf. Kihana scowled and stamped her foot. The girl whispered, you can't own a damn city baka. To the caped crusader. Kihana would have boasted that she was correct, saying, true, I can't, but Naruto preceded her by saying, but my mentor is this city's protector, so it's mine as well, by default. YUC can't dash. Kihana attempted to refute that reasoning, but once more, an authority figure cut her off. He can, it's an unwritten rule, Ino said, shrugging her shoulders as the two looked up to see the guy they were both searching for seated on one of the window ledges. Aichmum! Kihana exclaimed as Naruto covered her mouth once more. Fox looked up at the blonde thief and remarked, you leave a lot of evidence behind you know for a cat burglar. When Ino fell off the cliff and landed in front of the two, the girl smirked and said, my, just look how you've grown Kihana. Maybe I wanted to be caught, ever think of that smarty pants? Akamaru growled at Ino and would have pounced at her, but the girl took out a chew toy and flung it at the large dog instead. Muck Mew, fuck you, Kihana muttered behind Naruto's hand. Kihana yelled, Twiter. Traitor, when observing her partner munching on an enemy toy. Fox refused to allow Kihana leave, saying in a harsh tone, enough of this crap. Why have you been robbing jewelry stores? The girl claimed to have felt him draw her in closer, which caused the Inuzuka heiress to flush. Looking at the lad from head to toe, Ino said, maybe I'm looking for the bat, but you will do, what's your name anyway? When Fox narrowed his eyes and said, I'll know if you're lying and you don't want to do that, Ino gave him a charming and flirtatious look. I like it, I would have preferred the bat. Kihana growled louder as the girl walked past Fox and ran a finger over his shoulder. Oh! The dark bad boy act, she said. The girl then went behind Fox and put her arms around his neck, saying, but you seem more my type, you know, strong, gives off a bad boy vibe and, not to mention you're more around my age. She would have removed his hood, but Fox reached up and grabbed her hand. Don't was his fierce caution, which caused Ino to chuckle. She muttered in his ear, oh yes, you're making me weak at the knees. Fox would have shot back, but he was distracted by a crimson dot on the side of Ino's head. The new caped crusader leaped into action, seized Ino, and pushed the three of them into the shade that the wall now pressed against. Positioned above the alley, well, this place is dangerous, Ino stated, smiling at their current predicament, adding, I like it. Underscore 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 you missed. The sniper growled at the voice in her earpiece. She had a red head and a black beret on top of it. She was wearing a medieval cowl around her neck, 2 holstered handguns on a utility belt, and a red leather crop top. She also had fingerless gloves and a steampunk-style scanner on her right eye. She squinted her eyes and reamed after the redhead pressed a lever on her sniper, causing the empty shell to leave the weapon. Tayuya shouted into the headset, "Shut the fuck up. Perhaps if you had stopped giving me orders, I wouldn't have missed," she said, looking around for the three. Deadshot made a checkmark appear on Tayuya's head and remarked, "If you fail this mission, you're going to be training non-stop for 5 days, only stopping sleep." With an evil laugh, the girl clicked a button on the earpiece and switched it off, saying, "I said shut the fuck up. I've got more than one way to skin cat."